The story of Moses. In Egypt, the children of Jacob, who was also named Israel, had children and grandchildren on for generations. One day, a new Pharaoh came to the throne and said, "The tribes of Israel are getting too large. They could turn against us, and we could have enemies right inside our own country. We must make them disappear."
Dun, dun, dun.
And so, Pharaoh forced the people of Israel to build new towns. The people became slaves in Egypt, but they continued to have children, and there were many of them. To limit how many Israelites there were, Pharaoh ordered that little baby boys should be killed. One woman hid her baby. After 3 months, when hiding him became too difficult, she put him in a basket and hid him in the reeds on the edge of the Nile.
The baby was watched by his sister Miriam. As it happened that day, Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river and found the basket floating among the rushes. She realized that this was an Israelite child, but decided to save it.
Then the sister of the baby came out of hiding and offered to find a nurse for the baby, and ran off to get her mother. In this way, the baby was given to its own mother, who had been taken on as a nurse by Pharaoh's daughter. Then the child lived in the palace, and Pharaoh's daughter loved him like her own son. She chose the name Moses, which means saved from the waters. Although brought up as an Egyptian, Moses never forgot that he was one of the children of Israel. One day he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite slave. Looking on and seeing no one was looking, he killed the attacker.
However, word of what he had done eventually came to Pharaoh's ears, and Moses knew that his life was in danger. He left Egypt and went to the land of Midian.
Dun, dun, dun.
After traveling, he sat down to rest near a well. The 7 daughters of Jethro, a priest in Midian, came to the well to draw water, but the local shepherds drove them away.
Moses drove the men away and then helped the young women fill their jars. When they told their father what had happened, Jethro was so grateful that he gave Moses his daughter, Zipporah, in marriage. One day when Moses was watching the sheep, he led them close to the holy mountain of Sinai. When he looked up on the mountain, he saw a bush that had burst into flames, but it wasn't burning up. Then Moses heard the voice of God calling him, "Moses, do not come any nearer, for you are standing on holy ground. I have seen how my people are suffering in Egypt, where they are treated as slaves," said the Lord. "I will free them from that cool country and give them land of their own, a land flowing with milk and honey. You, Moses, must go and bring my people out of Egypt."
"But how am I to do this?" asked Moses.
"I will be with you," said the Lord. "You must tell the Israelites that I am the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham and Isaac, and they will follow you. Tell them that God, whose name is that I am, has sent you. You must go to Pharaoh and ask him in my name to release the Israelites. He will be angry and refuse your request, but I can help him change his mind."
But what if they do not believe that I am sent by God? "Moses, what are you holding in your hand?" "A staff," said Moses.
"Throw it to the ground." And Moses threw down his staff, which instantly became a serpent writhing in the dust. "Now lift it up by the tail." As Moses picked up the snake, it turned back into a wooden staff.
But Lord, I am slow of speech, said Moses. Then your brother Aaron shall speak for you. Now go, do as I have told you, and I will be with you, said God. So Moses accepted his mission.
So Moses and his brother Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "The God of Israel asked you to let our people go." Pharaoh said, "Who is this God? Why should I do what this God says?" He refused and made the Israelites work even harder. So Moses turned to God. "Lord, why did you send me?" he asked. "All I have done is make the oppression of my people worse.
The Lord replied, I will lead you out of Egypt. You shall be my people, and I will be your God. Go back and talk to Pharaoh. Moses' brother Aaron threw his stick in front of Pharaoh, and it turned into a snake. But the Egyptian magicians did the same thing, and Pharaoh did not give in. Moses struck the river Nile with a stick. All the waters turned into blood, the fish died, and the Egyptians had nothing to drink.
Dun, 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 dun.
But Pharaoh did not give in. The whole of Egypt was then overrun with frogs.
They got into everything. They climbed everywhere. Pharaoh promised that if the frogs disappeared, he would let the people of Israel go. The frogs died, but Pharaoh did not keep his promise. Many other plagues come to Egypt, but Pharaoh would not let the people go until the time of the Passover, when all the firstborn in Egypt died. The people of Israel were finally free to leave Egypt. They packed up all their belongings. They took their animals with them and loaded up all the wagons they could.
The people followed Moses as he led them out of Egypt, where they had been slaves. But Pharaoh changed his mind once again and sent soldiers after the Israelites.
Moses led the people to the edge of the Red Sea. They looked back and saw Pharaoh's army chasing after them. Moses stretched his rod over the sea, and the waves parted, and there was a road in the middle of the sea.
The people of Israel crossed over without getting their feet wet. But when Pharaoh's army followed them into the sea, the waters crashed over them, and they all drowned.
The Israelites were now free from Egypt, but as they got farther away, their food ran out, and they complained that Moses had led them into the desert to die. God heard their cries and sent a special food called manna. In the morning, it would cover the ground. They could pick up enough for that day alone, and on Fridays could pick up enough for 2 days to last through the Sabbath.
The Israelites arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai and camped there while Moses went to the mountaintop to pray. Moses heard God's voice like a mighty trumpet, And God gave special laws to the people. The first was to have no other gods but the God of Israel. Moses was on top of Mount Sinai a long time, as God wrote out the 10 best ways to live on a tablet of stone.
But the people didn't know what was keeping Moses, and they were afraid. So they asked Aaron to make a god for them. Aaron created a golden calf that the people worshipped and danced around.
Coming down the mountain, Moses saw this. He was so angry at them that he threw down the tablet and it broke. And God had to write another tablet of commandments for the people.
Moses made them tear down the golden calf and taught them these new ways to live. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, the people finally came to their new home.
And in the promised land, they were able to build places to live and worship God, who had brought them out of slavery.
Yay!